I can't believe it's been 22 years.
It's time for Animaniacs yet again, and I am beyond excited that these guys are back. Yakko, Wakko, and Dot found a special spot in everyone's hearts during the 90s, and their popularity continued long after the original show came to an end. Looking at the episodes that started it all, it feels like a snapshot in time. Being that so much of it is centered around current events, a lot of things are outdated for the generation today. How exactly is a problem like that solved? Bring him back for a reboot. Let's go! When word spread that Animaniacs would be blessing our TV screens again, a lot of people were happy, and for good reason too. When the world needed them most, they returned. Now that the revival's first season is officially out there, how does it turn out? Does it live up to the high expectations? And can it stand on the same level of the original series? Let's take a deep dive into the new adventures of Yakko, Wakko, and Dot. There's a lot to talk about. So leading up to this revival were a bunch of different clips that set up the stage for what we can expect. As per usual, these characters were incredibly self-aware. They talk directly to you, the viewer. Now, when judging any type of show, we always have to start with episode 1. First impressions are one of the key things here, right? If people aren't pulled in at the start, then they'll just leave, and they won't see whatever comes next. Luckily, Yakko, Wakko, and Dot's first appearance in more than 20 years is phenomenal. It all opens with a parody of Jurassic Park, painting the Warners to be these majestic creatures. Steven Spielberg says that this is very much the same Animaniacs, and you know what? He's 100% right. The theme song is a nice indication of how this revival is gonna go, and let me just tell you, it hits everything you'd want. While it starts out in the same way as before and follows the tune, we quickly dive right into a few modern liberties. The gang comes out of the grave, there's gender balance, neutral pronouns, and being ethically diverse. They even mention what critics are going to say about how the old Animaniacs are better, or something like that, when in reality this revival is the same. Now, throughout the updated theme song, you'd realize that many characters from the original are nowhere to be seen. That may cause disappointment to some, but honestly, I think it's a great decision. I've always thought the Warners were far above everyone else, with Pinky and the Brain being second place. Did anyone really want more of these pigeon guys? Seriously, you watch Animaniacs for the core characters, not a whole lot of everyone else. Their stories were never as fun or creative, and this way, the best characters can get the focus. The first segment surrounds Yakko, Wakko, and Dot trying to make a good first impression to the new audience. It's incredibly meta-driven, demolishing the fourth wall in every way it can.
We're doing this thing where we don't waste our first lines.
Make sure it's funny.
Perfect!
Since they haven't been around in the modern age of technology, they decide to learn everything they missed. We get this full song of catch-up talking about what went down in their absence. I love this. I love that. I love everything here. What's even cooler is that they're talking about things that obviously couldn't be addressed in the original series. It was the 90s. A lot of the tech you know today wasn't around back then. This leaves the door open for endless possibilities for what to make fun of, things that feel fresh from the original. Pinky and the Brain are finally back in the next segment, this time using memes to try and take over the world. Wait, hold up. Can we please talk about this theme song? It takes on a minimalist design, but the crew went all in to make it cool. It's just so pleasing to look at, and every time it pops up in an episode, I'm not gonna skip it. Anyway, these guys have always been some of the best characters, hence why they didn't get the axe. Now, what I love about this segment in particular is just the idea of social media being used for world domination. These characters are very much the same ones you fell in love with, but being in the year 2020, they have many more plans.
I will become the internet's cutest and silliest animal.
In the final segment of the first episode, the Warners talk reboots. More specifically, how we live in a time where franchises just keep coming back for money. As always, they're not wrong. They managed to make fun of some of the biggest names in Hollywood, leaving very few franchises out. Yakko understands the implications behind revivals, and yeah, he talks about what that means for the new Animaniacs.
Here's your check for the Animaniacs reboot, you sellouts.
Yeah, but when we sell out, we know we're selling out, so it's cool.
These guys are sellouts, and I'm loving all this meta humor, but there's a big question we need to answer. Is this show actually good? I mean, can it do well in other aspects besides destroying the fourth wall? I love meta humor as much as the next guy, but when you rely too much on a single joke, it starts to get old. Here's the good news. The new Animaniacs does stand on its own 2 feet as a revival, even when putting aside the jokes about reboots. After episode 1, the show evolves into something more than making fun of itself. Just like the 90s, the Warners come face to face with a random figure from history, and their cartoony hijinks are in full swing. In that way, this is still a fun cartoon to watch, even without the meta humor. These encounters are wacky enough to keep your attention, which means that the show doesn't have to rely on one thing to be good. What also drives the comedy in Animaniacs is the current events. There are more than a few topical jokes, whether that be making fun of a controversial problem in society, or taking on the President of the United States. Yes, there are several amazing parodies of Trump, and no, this isn't out of nowhere for the Warners. Some people who didn't grow up with the original show may look at this and say, come on, keep the politics out of my cartoons. But here's the truth. Animaniacs has always included politics, even throughout the original run. You can love it or hate it, but don't hold it against the reboot. This is nothing new.
I have a great brain and these two very excellent eyes that I can see things very well with.
When making fun of real-world topics, nothing and nobody is safe. If you ever wanted to see Yakko, Wakko, and Dot in anime form, well then, here you go! We've officially stopped watching Animaniacs, now we're all hooked onto Animaniacs. Thank you, I'll be here all night. Nah, but seriously, the animation here was godlike, as anyone can expect for a parody of anime. It was explosion-filled and over the top with every second. You don't want to miss any of it. See, this is one of the things I love about the show. It'll always tackle new ideas and styles, constantly staying fresh with its parodies. Episode 2 featured a massive crossover with cartoon characters throughout history, cleaned up for a new generation. Bugs Bunny, the Flintstones, and a whole lot of other friends are here, all working together to get the right to vote. It not only works as a celebration of animation, but it just goes to show the incredible worlds that the Animaniacs takes place in. If you've been following along, you'd realize that they aren't in their own fictional bubble like many other animated shows. Instead, it's like they're in the real world. Other cartoon characters could show up like this, and it just makes sense. It's a fact that stands true for both the original series and the revival, working just as well today as it did before. Now, I've been going on and on about what makes Animaniacs 2020 so good, and I still think it is, but we should at least be fair here. The show isn't perfect. Something you may notice is that longtime fan favorite characters were taken out, like the nurse. This was done because TV has changed a lot since the 90s, and you can't have someone like that on a modern kids show. Times have changed, but that's more the fault of standards and practices instead of the crew who worked on this. Also, one of my personal nitpicks is the animation style. If you pause at any moment and look at everything out of context, everything looks fine. But when the characters actually start moving, I don't know, something about it doesn't feel as smooth as it could be. This was just done to cut costs, and it's not a game breaker. It's just something I felt like I should mention. Another downside to the revival is how the episodes are formatted. At first, you don't know what's gonna happen next, but after watching a few, you see a clear pattern. The first segment is usually about the Warners getting in a wacky situation, then we have Pinky and the Brain trying to rule the world, and then some miscellaneous stuff after that. It's all still really good, but the formula gets tiresome after a while.
Who am I kidding? Face it, guys, we're out of ideas.
It does feel like we've been doing a lot of the heavy lifting in this reboot.
What I'm trying to say is that this is not the kind of show to binge watch. It's tempting, but trust me, you're gonna love this a lot more if you take breaks. Maybe just watch 1 or 2 episodes a day. Even with these minor complaints, I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. This is one of the best cartoon revivals. That's a real compliment, considering most revivals are just born out of money and nothing else. Now you may be wondering, what does Animaniacs do that makes it stand out? Well, it's the whole idea of remaining faithful to the original while still adding something new. The Warners know their cartoon characters just like the 90s. They parody everything they can, just like the 90s. They appeal to kids and adults, just like the 90s. The Warners have entered a vastly different era, one with enough material to make it stand out from the previous adventures, while still being the same show. This does what all cartoon revivals should do, and it gives me hope for the future. Reboots usually have a bad reputation, but Animaniacs is proving that that's not always the case. For fans old and new, this is a must-watch. But anyway, that's all for this video. Subscribe for more awesome cartoon videos. Give a thumbs up and comment below, let me know what you think. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.